Looks like we've got quite a few people in here. So again, thank you all for coming. I want to welcome you to the Phi Alpha Delta professional webinar series. Tonight we're going to talk about being a government attorney, and I've got three great panelists for you all. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about them. Then we'll go into some questions, prepared questions, and then we're going to open up the floor to questions from participants. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section down in the Zoom panel. So again, thank you very much, and let's get started. So my name is Michelle Isherwood. I'm with Humphrey Chapter. I'm an alum here in Nashville, New Hampshire. And thank you again. So let's get started. John Karasek, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm John Karasek. I'm from the Robert E. Redding National Capital Area Alumni Chapter in the National Capital Area here in the DC metro area. I work for the Office of Naval Research, and I'm in Alexandria, Virginia, and I'm your international treasurer.
Thank you, John. Acacia Bellamy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, but before I begin my segment, I must state a disclaimer for my department. I am appearing here today in my personal capacity. The views expressed are my own and do not reflect the views of the Departmental Appeals Board, the United States Department of Health and Human Services, or the United States government. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. As Michelle indicated, my name is Acacia Bellamy. I am a member of the Baltimore Alumni Chapter. I live in Laurel, Maryland. I have been a member of Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International since September 2016. I was initiated in the Widener University Commonwealth Law School chapter, Pepper chapter. Before I was an attorney, I worked for the governor's budget office as an executive budget specialist. After I passed the bar exam, I served as a federal law clerk. And currently I work for the United States Department of Health and Human Services Departmental Appeals Board. And my job responsibilities include preparing memorandums, orders, decisions regarding Medicare coverage and reimbursement.
Great, thank you. And Ron Coleman, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Coleman. From a fraternal perspective, I was initiated into the Sanford chapter at the University of Tennessee College of Law. I'm a current member of the Knoxville Alumni Chapter and the Nashville Alumni Chapter, as well as a lifetime member. And I'm also currently serving as the District 15 Justice, which is the District Justice over all of Tennessee, Kentucky, and the southern half of Ohio. From a professional perspective, I am currently serving as an Assistant Attorney General for the Office of the Tennessee Attorney General in their Criminal Appeals Division, which means I handle all direct appeals and collateral attacks across the state of Tennessee. Before that, while I was in law school, I served at two different district attorney general's offices at the trial court level, and I also served with a state-run innocence and wrongful convictions organization.
So let's start with the first questions. First of all, for all of you, how did you get into working for the government, and what made you want to pursue this career field? So I don't know, Acacia, do you want to start?
Sure. I actually started with government in state politics. I received my undergraduate degree and my master's degree from Penn State, my undergraduate degree in public policy, my master's in public administration. And I attended the satellite campus, Penn State Harrisburg, and Harrisburg is the capital of Pennsylvania. So as you can imagine, there's lots of opportunities to get involved in politics. So in undergraduate school, I was in the Pennsylvania Legislative Fellowship Program. I was assigned to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, the House Democratic Education Committee. I served there for a semester. Then I dabbled in some local politics. I went back to my hometown, Newburgh, New York, where I got an internship with the City of Newburgh, Department of Planning and Development. Afterwards, my local government experience and my experience in the Pennsylvania House opened up a door for me to serve as a legislative staffer for the Pennsylvania Senate. After that, I decided that I wanted to pursue a legal career in government. So I applied and was selected for a legal internship with the United States Department of Justice, Office of Immigration Litigation. Afterwards, I returned to Harrisburg, where I served as an executive budget specialist for the Pennsylvania Governor's Budget Office, and I went to law school in the evening. So I actually worked full-time and went to law school. And in law school, one of my professors was a federal judge, and I got an A in his class, and he recommended me for a federal clerkship. And so I served as a law clerk at the United States District Court. And my federal clerkship was basically a stepping stone into the federal government and opened up the door for my current position at the United States Department of Health and Human Services.
Great, thank you. What about you, Ron?
So I always knew I wanted to do government service. It was sort of in my family, not necessarily in the legal aspect, but just government service in general. And so I started out with a brief stint in the United States Air Force, actually on track to become a JAG before a medical injury sidelined me and I was discharged. So I decided I would take it from a different tack and approach it working for the state or federal government and realized that I sort of liked the kind of controlled chaos of state courts as opposed to the more idealistic federal version of the law. And so that's when I started just showing up at district attorneys' offices and saying, hey, I'm here to help out. And I got, my name went around to a couple of different DAs and they recommended me to work with the Attorney General's office, and I got offered a job. And usually when you get offered a job coming straight out of law school, you say yes. So I did it and I've loved it ever since.
Great, thank you. John, how did you get into working for the government and what made you want to pursue this career field?
Sure, and I should probably start by also giving my standard disclaimer that views are my own, not necessarily the views of the Department of the Navy. I kind of stumbled into it in a way. When I graduated from law school, there was a pretty major job slump. There, we were in a recession, and so there weren't a whole lot of jobs out there. To be found. And I knew I wanted to do intellectual property law. I knew that was something that I was really, really interested in. I had the right background for it. I thought that would be a great group of clients to work with. So that was something that I really, really wanted to do. And I went to a job fair in Chicago. There's this big intellectual property job fair that one of the Chicago law schools sponsors, and law firms and companies and government agencies go there to interview law students to come work for them. And one of the organizations that I interviewed with was the Department of the Navy. And I got to talking with the interviewer, who ended up being my boss, and he was just telling me about the different things that they were working on, and the kinds of technologies that I might see, and I'd have to pass a background check and get a security clearance because some of their work is classified, and my eyes just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I thought, okay, this sounds really, really cool. So I got a job offer from them, accepted it. And I thought, well, I'll do this for a few years until something more interesting comes along, something more exciting, more fun. There's never been anything more interesting as an intellectual property attorney than working for the Department of the Navy. There's just really nowhere to go from there. So I've made a career out of it, and it has been more fun than you can possibly imagine.
Great, that sounds awesome. So what skills and training do you think are necessary or beneficial to becoming a government attorney? And are there any, certain classes you would recommend taking, either undergrad or law school? And are there any certifications you would recommend to really get your foot in the door or stand out in the field? I guess, Ron, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. I think my answer won't be as good as John's because ultimately it really depends on what type of job you want with the government. But for, I would say, the majority of at least state level governmental jobs, you don't necessarily need any special training or any special skills. You just have to get your foot in the door and be very passionate about what you're going to be doing. You have to have aside from the general job skills that you should have, working well as a team, being cooperative, having initiative, things like that, you'll have to have, but there's nothing super specific about it. But if you want to work at a different level, so in Tennessee, at least, we have the Attorney General's office, which handles the appellate stuff, but the district attorney generals handle the trial court stuff. And so if you want to do trial court level work or appellate level work, and your law school or pre-law school or undergrad has some sort of focused either training or class or concentration, something like that, then I would certainly recommend doing that.
Great. What about you, John?
How far should I go in answering that question? The FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation. I know it's a terrible pun. I just couldn't help myself. Throughout the federal government, the Federal Acquisition Regulation is just ubiquitous. Even in DoD, where we feel like the 1,000 pages of the FAR isn't enough for us, so we need another 800 pages of the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation supplement to tack onto that. The FAR is everywhere. So if you're interested in practicing within the federal government, especially in an OGC type of position where you're functioning as in-house counsel, you're going, it doesn't matter if you're doing employment law or if you're doing intellectual property law or if you're doing Freedom of Information Act, you're going to encounter the FAR in your career. So getting some background in that, very helpful. Project management, you get called on over the course of your career to not just do day in, day out legal work, but to manage projects from beginning to end. So getting some background in project management is very helpful. But I think the most important thing, and it's something that I didn't know when I got out of law school, executive writing, very different from legal writing. When I'm writing for my clients, my writing style is completely different than when I'm writing for the USPTO, or if I'm writing a memo of law for my supervisory chain or anything like that. I always start with the bottom line up front, and I keep things as distilled as possible. It's a very different writing style, but most of your writing as a government attorney, within an OGC type of role, is going to be geared towards your clients, and they need it short, concise, digestible, and actionable, something that they can, gives them the information they need to decide we're going to do this rather than that. So those are the three things I would look at.
Great, thank you. So Acacia, what about you? What skills or training are necessary or beneficial to being a government attorney? And are there any classes or specific certifications? And then there's a question in the chat that I'm going to go ahead and put, or in the Q&A section, I'm going to put in here because it's relevant. Somebody also asked, was going through an MPA program helpful to you later in law school and your legal career? And if so, how? So it's kind of a lot of questions, but it was relevant. So I thought I'd throw it in.
Yes. Well, to answer the person's question, the answer is yes, it was very relevant. I always knew that I wanted a career in government and politics. Specifically, I knew that I've always wanted to work for the federal government. So that's one of the reasons why I took the path that I took, undergraduate degree in public policy and a master's degree in public administration. And my master's degree is one of the primary reasons why I was hired at the governor's budget office. So I was able to get a lot of legislative experiences. And at the time I was in my master's program, that's how I got into the United States Department of Justice. The director actually brought me on so that I could, figure out if I wanted to pursue a legal career. So my master's degree has definitely helped me in the field, in my particular area of interest, politics and legislation. With that being said, I think one of the most imperative skills that a person may need to pursue a career as a government attorney is legal writing and analytical skills. I think that could go in the private sector or any different area of law or sector of law. It's important for you to enhance your legal writing and your analytical skills, which you can gain from legal writing courses in law school. You can gain from serving on law review. I would also strongly suggest, if you have an opportunity to participate in a judicial externship, working for a judge, any judge, local, state, or federal, those are excellent experiences, and it'll allow you to have lots of writing examples from a practical standpoint, and you'll be able to sort of look at legal issues from the perspective of the bench, which is very, very, very useful. Just to echo what Ron said, I always knew, I have a particular interest in legislation, politics, government. So I made sure that I took all the government, politics, legislation classes that were available at my law school. I was in state administrative law, state constitutional law, legislation, legislative drafting. I took all those classes. My certificate is in legislation, so I have specialized legal studies in legislation. But of course, there are other certificate programs that students could obtain. I mean, you can do administrative and constitutional law. There's business advising. There's environmental law. They're all applicable to being a government attorney. The certificate programs, obviously, they vary between law schools, but I believe that all law schools have it. And in fact, at Penn State, we had certificate programs, and I wasn't even in the legal program. We had public policy, which goes to the heart of the legislative process. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And now, finally, the last prepared question. And again, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box on the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll open this up really shortly. So the last question I have is, what are the different career fields that are open to attorneys in the government, whether they be traditional legal or non-traditional legal? That would be more JD preferred. So any suggestions or ideas? John, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. The three big categories, at least within the executive branch, the three big categories of attorney positions, I think you see represented here. You've got the criminal justice role that you see, DOJ and JAG attorneys practicing in. It's a huge part of what government legal practice is. There's an entire community, obviously, that's practicing there. You've got people like myself, Office of General Counsel, who are fulfilling a much more of an in-house role, where we're doing the same sorts of things that in-house counsel at a major corporation would be doing. So we're advising on contracts, on real estate and environmental issues, on intellectual property issues, on employment issues, yada, yada, yada. All the things that any big organization is going to need legal advice on. and finally, the other big thing, and this is kind of unique to the government, are people whose legal careers are directly in support of the mission of their agency. Like what Acacia is doing, or folks who are working in regulatory agencies like FERC or the FCC or the FDA. Those attorneys are writing rules. They're adjudicating. They're there, not to support their clients. They're there actually executing the mission of that agency. It's a really unusual and really cool function that lawyers can play within an agency, and it's totally unique to government service.
What are your thoughts, Acacia? Where do you see, what kind of career fields are open within the government?
Well, I would say I am a strong advocate of judicial clerkships. I think they're amazing opportunities to get mentorship from a judge for life. I mean, I worked for 5 federal judges, and I still talk to them to this very day. And, my experience at the United States District Court was extremely valuable. I enhanced my legal and analytical skills. That was very helpful to the current position that I am, and to the practice of law, to any opportunity that I fall into in the future. So I'm a strong advocate for judicial clerkship. And like I said, you can get a judicial clerkship at local, state, or federal. You can also work for a legislative body at local, state, or federal. You can work for Congress. You can work for the state General Assembly. You can work for a council in a local government. I've done all of it. You could work for an executive agency, just like John had said. You can work for the Office of General Counsel, an executive agency. So there's lots of opportunities for government attorneys for those who are interested in.
Great. What about you, Ron?
So at least at the state level, if you can think of it as a job, you will have access to that. Pretty much any sort of legal career. The only, I guess, limitation is that you would be representing either the state or some statewide entity. So, for example, our office alone handles obviously all sorts of criminal matters. We also handle civil rights claims. We also handle people suing the state as an employer. We handle tobacco regulation. We have people who are auditors and review contracts to make sure that the numbers add up. We have people who represent schools. We have people who are with part of the consumer protection division, and then we have public interest people, and that's our office alone. I also have friends that work with the executive branch that are either working for the governor or working for sort of as in-house counsel, like John mentioned, for some state agency. I have friends who work within the legislature and help draft bills or help work with a representative or things of that nature. I have friends that are legislative liaisons that are sort of the go-between between the legislature and the executive branch. Like Acacia, I have friends who are judicial clerks and have been for years. So it's not just necessarily a stepping tool to go somewhere else. You can make a legitimate career out of being a judicial clerk. Really, if it's something that you can think of, you can do it as long as you're willing to work for the government and realize that you're going to represent an entity, a state or a federal entity, or even a local entity, as a city council or something like that.
Great, thanks. So I'm going to open the floor up to questions. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So let's see. It says the first one is, many law students are there to make a difference. Make a difference is in quotes. Civil rights, human rights, voting rights. In what way do you feel that you are making a difference in your government work? Let's see. Ron, do you want to start with that one, or?
Sure. So for me personally, I think it's twofold. I think working for the state, especially in a criminal setting, gives you all of the cards and gives you almost all of the power. What I mean by that is I like to categorize my job as saying I keep the bad guys in jail. They've already been convicted, and on appeal, they're saying that they should get out of jail. And the vast majority of the time, 99 out of 100 times, I am in charge of keeping them in jail. But I also have the power, if I notice that something has gone wrong, if I notice that there was some error at trial, or that there was a suppression issue, or maybe this person just shouldn't be in jail for whatever reason, I have the power to concede as the state and to to help them and ensure that justice is done from that side. And so I think really when you work for the state government, you get to have more cards in your hand, or federal government, obviously. You have more cards in your hand, you get more discretion, you get to make a lot of the decisions either beforehand or even after the fact, where you're really impacting a lot of people's lives. And it's very fulfilling. It's nice to know that you can sort of go either way, that you don't have to zealously advocate for just one side. And it's what helps you sleep at night.
Great, thanks. What are your thoughts, Acacia?
I think, I wanted to be a government attorney because I wanted to make a difference. And in my current capacity and my formal capacity, serving as a judicial law clerk, my job, I was tasked with drafting decisions. Specifically, in district court, I would draft decisions on Social Security disability appeals. And so people who have been waiting years and years, and they're appealing whether or not they should have Social Security benefits. So it does bring joy to me that I was able to write decisions to determine whether the claimant got Social Security benefits or they didn't. Here currently it's the same thing. I work on a Medicare coverage and reimbursement in my current position at the United States Department of Health and Human Services. And people are waiting, like the judicial process can be pretty lengthy, and they've waited about 2 years for a decision as to whether, Medicare can cover whatever the specific service is. And I'm issuing a decision answering the question and giving people answers that they've been waiting for. So I'm helping people from that end. From a legislative perspective, if you're working for a member or a legislative body, you're drafting legislation on a specific policy issue that's going to impact many lives. Even prior to becoming an attorney, which is totally relevant, there are government attorneys that work in appropriations, in all levels of government, local, state, and federal. We are in a fiscal crisis, and I believe that the pandemic has further exacerbated it. And so I'm making decisions with regard to whether or not funds can go towards this, or whether we cut this program. So I'm making a difference in lives every single day. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to be a government attorney, because I enjoy public service and I want to impact as many lives as possible throughout my career.
Great, thank you. What about you, John? How do you feel you make a difference with your position?
So my answer is a little different, because in my role, my clients, the people I'm supporting, are doing something really, really, really important, but I'm several steps back from them in helping them do the thing that they're doing that's really, really, really important, and trying to help them do it in a way that keeps them safe, or that just makes it easier for them to do what it is that they're doing. And I do have one story I can share. So this goes back to the early days of the war in Afghanistan, when we were losing a lot of troops to these improvised explosive devices. And we did a good job of up-armoring our vehicles to protect them. But what we were finding is that people were surviving these explosions, but they were having devastating injuries to their limbs, to their arms and their legs. Well, some of my clients at NRL started partnering with some of the surgeons at Walter Reed to look at, anatomically, what was exactly happening to these soldiers, when they were being injured? What were the really bad injuries that could be protected from? And they discovered that if we could protect certain nerve bundles and certain blood vessels, they had a much better chance of coming through an explosion without those very devastating injuries. And so some of our people started designing body armor to protect extremities that was designed specifically to protect those parts of people's arms and legs, without adding a whole lot of weight and loss of agility to these soldiers. And so my job was a step further back in making sure that we protected the intellectual property in what they developed. So in an attenuated way, in a way that's several steps removed, I was helping my immediate technical clients do something to help the people who were doing something really, really important and putting themselves in harm's way. And that's the kind of thing that is almost a daily practice. When you're a lawyer for the Navy or for DoD in general, that something that you do is going to have a ripple effect and have an impact on the men and women who are putting their lives at risk, and that's incredibly rewarding.
Great, thank you, John. This question is specifically for Acacia. How was the legal internship at DOJ, and how much did it contribute to your future in government? This person says, I've looked into this specific one and just wanted some general feedback.
The internship at the United States Department of Justice was very, very interesting. And luckily for me, I was able to get into the summer program, which is the most competitive out of all of the semesters. I didn't really know too much about law because I was in a master's program and I was just dabbling in it, trying to see if this was the path that I wanted to go down. But I really, really enjoyed my experience. I worked specifically for the front office team because I was hired by the director. It was an excellent opportunity for me to engage with attorneys, engage with other legal students who were actually in law school, and sort of talk about the LSAT, talk about what their career paths are, what they were interested in doing after they graduated from law school. I got the opportunity to meet students who went to all different law schools all across the country. I got insight from several attorneys, do you think I should go to law school? And a lot of them said, don't do it. And I thought to myself, I'm totally doing it. Like, what? I have a master's at this point. I might as well just go and do it. So yeah, it was an excellent experience. So I would say go for it. If that's what you want to do, go for it. I would apply as early as possible. If you have some type of or you have a connection, or you have a professor that you're close with that has any connections to the Justice Department, I would talk to them. How I actually got this internship is just very interesting. It started off being a job fair, and I had went through the booklet of all these different agencies, and I saw the Justice Department, but I never thought that I could get in. I just didn't think I had the qualifications. And so I don't like going to anything late. And I ended up going into a restaurant because I had to use the restroom. And I was like 3 hours early for this job fair. And there was a table with 4 men in suits, and I had no idea who they were, but I wanted people to think I was with them because I didn't want to sit at the table alone. And we started talking about Penn State football, and they just happened to work for the Justice Department. And one of them was the director in charge of hiring and recruitment. And he gave me his card and he said, oh, you're here for, an internship. If it doesn't, you don't find one, here's my card. I might be able to help you out. So that's how I got in. But yeah, use all your connections, talk to other students, use the fraternity as, talk people in the fraternity who's worked for the Justice Department or currently work there, or interns there. We're a great resource here and we're willing to help. So yeah, use everything at your disposal.
Okay, so that's a great segue into the next question. That's if someone is looking for a job in government, what are the best resources they can use to find one? John, do you want to take that one?
Do not believe that USA Jobs is the beginning and end and be all and end all of looking for a federal job. Most legal jobs in the federal government are not listed there. Work your network. Talk to, if you know somebody, or if you know somebody who knows somebody at a given agency, talk to them, find out where they advertise their vacancies. It's probably on their own agency's website. And they may or may not put it on USA Jobs. We in the Navy keep like a running ad in USA Jobs to say, yeah, we have jobs from time to time, but we don't advertise any particular opening for any particular position with any particular requirements. You've got to look at the agency's website, and it's a really good idea to talk to somebody who works for that agency, even if it's not in the same office, even if it's somewhere else, just to get a sense of what the agency's like, who you would be working for if you got a particular job, what their office culture is like, things like that. Work your network to the utmost, and find out from your peers where to look. But look at all the different particular agency websites, because that's where you're going to find a lot more than you're going to find on USA Jobs.
Great. What about you, Ron? What are some suggestions for getting into government on the state level?
Yeah, so I think John really hit the biggest one, which is work your network. Get to know people, especially people who are in state or federal government, and use them, hit them up, get them to help you out, talk to them, and essentially get your foot in the door. But the thing that makes government employment interesting, or the way that you can sort of get your foot in the door when you're working for the government or when you want to work for the government, is to just show up. For most situations, especially if you want to do criminal work, or if you want to work legislative or work with the governor, things like that, you can just show up. You know where they're going to be. They're going to be in the courts, or they're going to be at the Capitol building, or they're going to be wherever they are, and they're always looking for help. The government is constantly underfunded. They will take as much help as they can get. They'll take volunteer work, and once you've done that, once you've got your name out there, then as soon as some position pops up, they'll think, man, that person's been around. They've been helping out. Why don't we just go ahead and hire them? And so I think that's what's unique about working for, about trying to get a job with the government, is you can sort of show up and really annoy them to death until they hire you, just almost out of spite, just because you're going to be around anyways. And so I'll emphasize again what John said: hit your networking, get to know people, and use that. But also just be there. Show them that you're interested. Show them that you want to help out. And it's a really good indication for them, and it will make them think of you before they think of anyone else.
Do you have additional advice, Acacia?
Well, I would say, echo what both John and Ron said: use your network. But also, too, what has helped me, even though I had a bit of a network, but I used them primarily for references, which are very, very important. It could really be beneficial to have a state representative write you a reference letter, or call on your behalf, or have 5 federal judges, saying wonderful things about you. You're like, the judge said it, so it's got to be true. But also, too, I would say that if you are really, really interested in government, it takes dedication, it takes persistence. And I found all of my opportunities on my own. Like I told the judges that I wanted to pursue a career in federal service working for an agency, and there's not much that they can do. You know, there is a process. So I just was looking all the time. And I just so happened to find a posting for my current job. And like John said, it wasn't on USA Job, it was on their website, but I was just looking. I think it was Thanksgiving Day. You know, I was just on my phone scrolling and then texting myself, emailing myself the job postings. You just got to be really dedicated and willing to look deep. I would also say that USA Jobs, you know, I always thought like, oh, you know, USA Jobs, you can't get a job on there. Well, I just got one. So I was just to say, I was just like, nobody's going to look at this. Like, I'm not going to get this position. But yeah, they forwarded my application for consideration. And I just recently got an offer to serve as like a special legal advisor. And so I'll be leaving my agency shortly. But so USA Jobs does work. So don't believe the fact, you know, it doesn't work and it's, you know, somebody's looking on there. So just use your resources, stay dedicated, and be willing to do the work on your own.
Great, thank you. I will add a plug. You heard a lot about networking. Use your File for Delta network. Use the directory, contact the executive office, talk to your district justice or other alumni. I worked for a stint at the Department of Justice in the Office of Inspector General, and I actually found out about the position through a fellow File for Delta member. So work your network through File for Delta, other places too. But you know, use what's available, and there's tons of people who can answer questions. The other thing I would suggest is there's a forum on the File for Delta website, P.A.D.org. If you go into the forums, there's a job posting forum and an open forum, and people post jobs there too. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, next question. So kind of building on this, this person's looking for advice on steps for an older established student looking to get into the federal employment. They say that they're 42, they've working since undergrad, so 13 years for the New York State Department of Labor. But now they're doing law school and looking to transition into like a federal employment. And they don't have time for externships or other kind of foot in the door work. What's some other advice you would give them for that kind of to kind of transition? I don't know, John or Acacia, which.
Well, I was just going to add, and this is that, you know, this scenario is sort of perfect for what I was going to say. I was just going to say that, you know, I've been there where, you know, not exactly, you know, 42, but I worked full time. I didn't start off as an attorney. I had a whole career before I became a licensed attorney. So I understand what you're saying and where you're coming from. But from what I'm hearing from a lot of people is that there are waves in where certain agencies are hiring lots of attorney at once. And that's an easier way to get in. There are some postings that I saw that come through my email from File for Delta and that are posted online. I don't want to really elaborate in this forum about it because I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place. But if you would like to discuss further, maybe Michelle or the office has my contact information where I could just tell you about certain opportunities in certain places that are hiring in waves that give you a higher chance in getting in.
Great. John, do you have anything to add or?
I've hired people whose first career was as an engineer, and who then mid-career transitioned to being an intellectual property attorney. So it's really not that unusual for people to make a pivot at some point in their career. So it's especially not that uncommon in the federal government, where people will go from program management or some other type of role into a legal position. Leverage the experience you have. Show how the experience that you have is going to be applicable and will benefit, your office in the new role that you're looking for as an attorney. Show how that skill set that you developed translates into you being a better attorney. But we certainly hire people who are not, either right out of law school or went directly from college to law school and then out in the workforce. We do that all the time.
Ron, do you have anything you want to add, or your resources to go from state to federal that you're aware of, or that anybody that you know of has used?
I think it's interesting to see if one of the agencies or one of the government's organizations has some sort of transitioning program. And what I mean by that is actually our office just started what we call the Veterans Fellow Program. And so we have an individual who is transitioning out of the United States Army. He flew Chinook helicopters, did a couple of deployments, and now he is in the process of going to law school. And so we've developed a program where he can sort of bounce around the different divisions in our office and see what it's like and get that experience while he is going to law school. And it's invaluable for us because we have an additional helping hand. It helps him throughout his law school process because he's learning more practical effects of how to practice law while he's still in law school. But then it's also a way for us to hire someone if he does well enough through this transition program. And so we already know he's got this interesting backstory and this good experience that will be beneficial to us. And he works his way up into just simply getting a legal position with our office. And so even if it's not military based, there are certain, I'm sure there are organizations and governmental agencies that have such similar transition programs for something that is specifically targeted to what they deal with. And so you can look for those. And that's a way you can, sometimes they'll pay you. If not, you can take it as a law school class. And that way it's not eating up your time or it's not, taking away from your full-time job, but it's still getting that foot in the door.
Great. That's a really good question about law school loans. And it says, does your agency or departments have policies regarding law school loan repayment assistance? It says, I've heard that many people start in the private sector and then move over to government after they pay off their loans. But I've also since heard that government agencies have loan repayment programs of their own. So I'm not sure which route would be best in terms of alleviating debt. That's a really good question. I don't know. Ron, do you want to take that, or is that?
I think it is a very good question. If you know of any organizations that have their own, please tell me, because at least for our office and for the state of Tennessee, we rely on the federal public service debt forgiveness program, which is definitely very useful. And I've had friends who have benefited from it, who done their 10 years of service, and it's fantastic. And so I think that program is good, but we don't have our own policy. So if you know of one, let me know.
Great. What about you, John?
We've done our own policy on this. So we know that the federal programs out there, but one of the benefits that we can negotiate with new hires is to take on payment of their law school debt, and we'll do that for as long as they stay with us. We do require them to stay with us for a certain number of years. If they leave before that, then we'll apportion how much they have to reimburse us for. I had an attorney who worked for me who was with us for like 1 year and 10 months, and so he had to pay back a small portion of what, and we had a 2-year commitment for him, so he had to pay back a small amount. because we figured, well, you mostly paid back what you mostly gave us what we bargained for. So it just seems simpler for us to do it that way and more reliable.
Acacia, what about you and your either federal or any of the state work that you did before coming into the law?
I will have to echo Ron and say that majority of the jobs that I had, we relied heavily on the federal student loan forgiveness program. However, there was one job that I had, and that's Congress. And Congress actually had a program similar to what John was referring to, where I'm talking about the House of Representatives. The Senate probably has it too, but they had a program where they would pay for your monthly payment, a portion of it. I don't know, because I ended up leaving to go to the governor's office. But it was something like that. I don't know if it was all of it or a portion of it, but that's the only office that I knew that had a program similar to what John was referring to. And I was thought to myself, oh my God, this would be amazing if I actually went to law school, because that's when I would have a substantial amount of debt. And I ended up going to law school, but I don't work for any entity that has that program. But yeah.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Oh, what does your average day look like in the life of a government attorney? Acacia, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. So I draft decisions for administrative appeals judges. So my day starts off with I am under a production requirement. So I have to move like 30 cases a quarter. So that comes out to about 10 cases a month. And it comes out to about 3 cases a week. So I need to go through my docket. I need to prioritize my docket to determine what cases I can get done in 3 days. Not 3 days, what cases I can get done in a week. So it's organization, prioritizing, identifying, time sensitive cases. I've got some of those. So obviously if there's a hard deadline, I got to get those done first. So it's a lot of time management, organization, prioritizing and managing my docket of cases. We have meetings with the judges, having telephone conferences with the judges about cases, about why I think that this case should go this way or the other, working with other attorneys on different matters. But it's similar to being a judicial law clerk, and it's relatively independent work. A lot of my work is just drafting, researching, and I do it independently without many interruptions or meetings throughout the day.
Great. How about you, Ron?
Yeah, so I think it heavily depends on what your position is in the government. But really, I think you can sort of separate it out into 2 different types of daily job. One is going to be paperwork intensive, and the other is going to be people intensive. And I'll give 2 examples of each. So my job is very paperwork intensive. And what I mean by that is because I do criminal appeals, it's all on paper. I read hundreds, if not thousands of pages of transcribed testimony from what happened in the trial court. I read the appellate brief of the defendants to see what issues they're complaining about. I do tons of legal research and legal analysis, and then I type out the state's brief as a response to the defendant's appeal. And so it's a lot of paper, it's a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and it's very, I'm in my office almost every single day, 8 hours a day, just doing paperwork, reading, legal research, and writing. Similarly, I have a friend who has a JD Advantage job, and he is a grants program manager for the Department of Central Services for the state of Tennessee, which means he reviews all of the contracts that we give out to any state agency or any other agency that has received a grant, either from the state or federal government, and approves it and makes sure that the numbers add up and things of that nature. And so his job day in and day out is to just pull up these contracts and these grants, look at the numbers, make sure everything's right. So very paperwork intensive. On the other side, you have very people intensive work. So when I was with the DA's office at the trial court level, almost every single day you were in court. You were standing there, you were coordinating with defense attorneys who were coming to see if you were going to continue the case, if you were going to have some hearing, if you could schedule it for trial, things of that nature. So you were working with them, you were talking with the victims of all the crimes, you were talking to the judge, you had hearings, you were asking questions, taking testimony. And so you were very involved with all these people, and everyone was rushing around and you're talking to them all the time. Similarly, I have a friend who is a legislative liaison, and so they're running around talking about all the bills that are up. They're going to different legislators' offices and saying, "Hey, what's your vote on this? What do you think about this? Do we have a friendly amendment?" Things of that nature. And so again, you're sort of running around and you're talking to people, and it's almost paperwork tangential. It's very people focused, and so I would say that at least the jobs that I know of, the government jobs that I know of, fall into one of those two categories generally.
Okay, what about you, John?
So at different points in my career, I've had each of those experiences, especially when I was in my first job in the Navy. It was very production focused, and I would pick up a file, write a patent application, file it, pick up another file, write up a patent application, and file it. Nowadays, my day tends to be a lot of coaching for other attorneys in the Navy, and helping them sort through their thorniest problems. And another big part of my job is working with my peers at Army and Air Force and elsewhere in DoD, to say, hey, we're seeing this issue emerging. Have you in the Navy seen it yet? What do you think about this? Let's put our heads together and see if we can come up with a common response. I'm on the hot seat for a lot of congressional inquiries. If a member of Congress got an angry phone call from a constituent about something relating to intellectual property, then I'm getting a letter from that member of Congress on my desk, and I'm going to draft the response to go back to the senator or Congress person, saying, here's what we did, here's why we did it. We think this was the appropriate course of action. I work closely with DOJ on all of our intellectual property litigation. If we're accused of infringing someone's patent or someone's copyright, DOJ represents us in federal court, but someone has to be the go-between, and that's a role that I have. Legislation relating to intellectual property, that gets coordinated anytime there's a legislative proposal that touches on intellectual property. That gets coordinated across the government, and the folks in legislative affairs, Navy legislative affairs, will route that to me for me to look at. Or if there's a new DoD instruction, there's one in the works right now on technology transfer that we've been drafting. So I work with my peers in the other parts of DoD on refining that language and getting that instruction into the way that we want it. So it's a lot of Zoom meetings, back to back to back, a lot of emails, a lot of email volleyball, tag you're it, oh damn, they replied. Now I got to reply back to them. So there's, it's a lot of it is just putting out the latest fire. And if there's one thing that's difficult in my job now, it's there's not a whole lot of time for strategic thinking. There's a lot more effort that we put into addressing the issue of the moment.
Well, I know we have a few more questions, or we have some more questions, but we are out of time. And I want to, but if we can, what we'll do is look at the questions and post answers, whether it's on the YouTube channel or, well, let's talk to the executive office and see what we can do to answer some of the questions that you've had. Again, I want to thank all of you for coming, and I really want to thank our webinar panelists, John Karasek, Acacia, Bellamy, and Ron Coleman, for agreeing to volunteer their time and share their information. It's really been great. Just so you know, we do record all of these webinars, and they are available on the Phi Alpha Delta YouTube channel on YouTube. And there's plenty. We've been doing these for I don't know, at least 2 years, maybe more. So there's some great ones coming up. There's one in March that's talking about social media law, being an influencer. That's going to be a really great session. So please join us for that. We just had one in January on wellness. So we've covered all kinds of topics, and I really do invite you to check those out. But again, I really want to push networking through Phi Alpha Delta. We're available for questions. That's what alumni are here. We really like to talk about ourselves. So by all means, reach out through the executive office, through your district justice, or any really alumni, and we can help you out. Again, thank you to our panelists. You guys were great. Thank you for all coming. I hope you have a great week, and stay safe and healthy. Have a good time. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Night, everybody.
Bye.